All right, and thank you guys for listening to WCEG Talk Radio. This is Millennial Talk 2.0, and I am your host, Kyle Andrew. And this is my first broadcast since this is the first broadcast of the year. I think the last time I was on air was in November. I was anticipating graduation, but I'm here to report that I'm a graduate now of Georgia State. At that time, I was nervous, but you couldn't tell. I was having a hard time sleeping, trying to make sure I got everything in, turning in quality work. But after December 12th, I partied for like a month, celebrating. I did. You had graduation, then you had Christmas, and then you had New Year's, and then you had my birthday. But throughout the whole time, I was surrounded by friends and family. So it was a good time. But this is not about me. I have a special guest in the studio with me today.
It's always about you.
It's not about me today. Ricardo D. Wrice is here with me today in the studio. He is an author, a television host, a radio host. Ricardo wrote a book called Calculated Conflict, which seeks to teach how to anticipate and calculate and survive conflict. The book takes a practical approach at both personal and organizational conflict. The book also examines the conflict processes, generational players, leadership styles, and even conflict offsets. He hosts a television show on the Now Network called The Leadership Blend, where he discusses things like organizational liability, and intellectual property. He also hosts a popular radio show called The Leadership Blend as well on IBNX Radio. So, Ricardo, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here. See you in your element.
Absolutely. I must add that I am a intern for Ricardo. I'm a correspondent on his show on Fridays from 12 to 2. So a lot of what I've learned came from Miss Penny here at WCEG as well as Ricardo. So thank you both. Now to have you guys in like one room, as well as Miss Patrina over there hiding in the corner. So Ricardo, let's get into your book first. It's called Calculated Conflict. So what made you want to write this particular book?
Well, for those that can see me, I'm older than I look. So I'm almost 40, and spending half my life in management and leadership in some regard or some aspect, you kind of start seeing the same trends. And I started seeing the same trends, whether it be in a nonprofit sector or whether it be in the for-profit sector. And I was like, okay, this is a problem. This is a real problem. And my passion is nonprofits. So I was like, this is a real problem, but this problem is the same problem I'm seeing in the for-profit sector as well. So maybe I should address it. And then I'm working on my doctorate, so half of it was in my dissertation. I was like, I think I might be onto something. Okay. So I just kind of took it out and kind of made a snapshot and decided to do a book on it.
Okay, so let me take a step back. Where did you get your undergrad? And how did you get into law? And how did you end up paint the picture for me from how you started in undergrad and you started in law and how you got to media and doing what you're doing now?
Oh, God. Okay, so I was one of those late bloomers. So I didn't do all that well in high school. I started college at a 2-year school. First semester, you're all excited. So you're like, oh, my God, I got a 3.0. And then second semester, you're like, yeah, this is not as much fun as it was. So most people don't know I had actually gotten a scholarship, a full ride to Technical College of the Low Country my first semester. And by the second semester, I lost it. And we went, I lost it by the second semester.
I didn't know this.
I know.
I would have never guessed this either.
It's embarrassing. Why would I tell anybody that? Like, especially when I look at my student loans, now I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, you had a full ride. Yeah, I had a full ride. And like I said, I lost it the second semester, kind of floated through for another couple of semesters and finally just dropped out. So I freelanced in the real world for about 2 years. And I'll never forget, I was working at Winn-Dixie as a customer service something. And 3 of the advisors from the college came in and was like, you need to go back to school. And I was like, whatever. And then the second one came in and was like, you need to go back to school. And the third one was Miss McCullough. I'll never forget it. She was a dean of students. She was like, okay, so when you come back to school? And I was like, okay, God, clearly I'm going back to school. So fine, I'm going to go back to school. So I got back to school, changed my major from business to paralegal studies, and got my GPA back up. And my advisors were like, you should go to law school. And I was like, I like to argue. I can do that. I can see that. I like to argue.
Yes, you do. You love to argue.
Okay, I didn't need you to co-sign on that, but okay.
All right.
Like, I like to argue. So I transferred to Coastal Carolina as a political science major. Finished it, and Dr. Tankersley, I will never forget, Holly Tankersley, stood up in front of the class, and she said, I'm going to be honest with y'all. And I was like, oh, God, what's wrong? She was like, most of you are not going to get a 6-figure job. Wow. She was like, that is not the reality. She was like, so when you consider going to law school, she was like, think about having almost $250,000 worth of debt, compiled on top of your undergrad debt. That was it for me. I was like, okay, well, no law school because we're not doing that. So I finished my undergrad at Coastal, moved to Atlanta to get my MBA from AIU. When I was done with AIU, I was like, okay, that was quick because it took me 11 months. And then I was like, I don't want to be told what to do. So how can I be not told what to do? So that's when I was like, let's get a doctorate. And then I started the doctorate process. But I have a love for law. I just didn't want to go to law school. It was too expensive, and the LSAT kicked my butt twice. So, yeah.
The LSAT. You're speaking terms that I've never heard of. What is
okay, well,
LSAT?
you know the SATs, right?
Yes.
It's like the law SATs.
Okay, so like the bar to become a lawyer.
I actually think the bar is easier.
Wow.
I think the bar is actually easier than the LSAT. The LSAT is supposed to be designed to weed out how well you're doing in law school. I don't think that's what it does, but it's designed to do that. It's extremely... For all those that anticipate going to law school, here's some free advice. Take the LSAT, pay to take the LSAT class. Because I thought I was so smart. Yeah, it was quite embarrassing when I got my butt kicked twice.
Okay. A lot of people don't know. I actually used to want to be a lawyer when I was about 4th or 5th grade, but then I decided I didn't want to do that because I actually saw the Tyler Perry movie where the lawyer got shot in the back, and I was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to do that. I was serious. That was your deterrent? I was scarred for life. I was like, I don't want that problem.
That was your deterrent.
I don't want that issue.
It's criminal law. I mean,
but I didn't know at that point that there were different kinds of lawyers, and that you could be a family lawyer. But I'm happy with the route that I decided to take.
Okay, well, you might getting shot. If you do family law, you could get shot too.
You can get shot doing anything, but
yeah, but the likelihood in family law and criminal law, yeah, it's very high. It's very high.
Well, I'm happy with the route I decided to take. But everybody knows. Back to your book, everybody knows. I think for the most part, everybody knows. At some point, I eventually want to write my own book. I don't think that my story is finished yet, but I have been, thinking about what points I want to make in my book because I think my college experience is one that can help others. Because I've gone through, I think I went through, a great deal in my college.
I'm not gonna tell everybody what we call you on my show. So
what do you call it? Richie?
Yeah, we.
All right. So everybody on the Leadership Blend thinks that I just have this great lifestyle, and I'm just
look. Y'all have to see how Kyle he looks like dressed down today. Like normally when he comes in my studio, he's like
I dress up
name
when I come
brand.
Here as well. Yeah.
Like he just looks like a superstar. So they all picture him. They call him Rich.
But
he went to private school, so that didn't help.
I get it from my parents. Like my dad.
I mean, we're not knocking it, but I mean, you look like
Simone thinks I live in a picket white fence, and
it doesn't. Like I said, it doesn't help when you tell me you went to private school. That really doesn't help.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
my private school was, in Fulton County, Campbellton Road. It was no place.
It's still private school. It doesn't matter how you try to paint it. It's still private school.
Anyway, back to my book. I was going to ask you, because I eventually want to write a book. What was the writing process like, and how long did it take?
Okay, so I don't like to wait on people. It's just not a gift I have. I have patience, but I don't like to wait on people. So mine was fairly easy, but my thought process was, okay, everybody's self-publishing because in the older days, self-publishing was looked down upon. Like you did not self-publish. You had an author. They did everything for you. Nobody self-published. It just wasn't a good look. Now everybody self-publishes, and it's the complete opposite. So with me, I was like, okay, with doing the Leadership Blend, everybody was like, especially when I talk about generations, everybody's like, oh my God, where can I get it? Where can I get it? I was like, you know what? I need a product because everybody's asking me for this information. And I actually like this information. So I was like, everybody's doing self-publishing, so let me try my hand at it. And a friend of mine actually did hers. So I overcomplicate everything. So I wrote the book in Word, and then I was reading articles because I like to research, and they was like, oh, you should change the margins and blah, blah. And I uploaded and was like, everything's wrong. So I called her, and she was like, no, you just do it in Word, upload it to CreateSpace, call it a day. It was literally that simple. I didn't have an editor or anything because my thought process was, if I'm getting a doctorate and have almost 4 degrees, I should be able to proofread my own stuff.
Exactly.
So I did. Now, I have friends that do it, but I was like, I'm not going through all that. So mine was done in about 2-3 months because I just took it from my dissertation and put it into a book and made it user-friendly. So
okay, so now one person read your book before you released it.
Nope.
That's really bold. I would be
okay. Let me take that back. Let me take that back because it was a part of my dissertation. 5 or 6 department chairs had already read it, who were all doctors. So they had already flagged me for all this stuff that I'd already fixed. So in essence, people did kind of read it.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll say that.
Okay. So how do you think that the information in your book can be of aid to like millennials, like people my age? Well, like we were saying before came on air, that I'm actually like the last of the millennials. It ends at like 95, 96. So people from at least the age of 24 to 30, how can they use your book to figure out this thing called adulting, which I'm actually struggling with right now?
But you're rich, so I don't understand the problem.
Here we go again.
You're rich. I don't see the problem is. Like,
all right.
Okay. Actually, the book is about generations in general. So it talks about baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, millennials. And I think a lot of times people don't understand the importance of having that level of information, because what happens is these are classes of people. So when you say baby boomers, this is a class of people all born in the same time, in the same time space, encountering the same things. Mm-hmm. So they typically think and move alike. So when you understand the dynamics of a baby boomer versus the dynamics of a millennial, mm-hmm. you're able to almost speak in tongues to a room, because you know what to say to this one, what not to say to that one. How do you assign tasks to this group? Because I think we were talking on my TV show about millennials versus baby boomers. Mm-hmm. Baby boomers are a lot more independent, but it's a different kind of independent. Millennials, you can give them a task, and especially if it's social media geared, they get it done in 2 seconds. Yeah. You give a social media to a baby boomer, they're going to sit there for 3 hours trying to figure out how to turn the computer on.
Exactly.
No shade for my older people, but we all know it's true. Yeah. That's why we have grandparents who be like, okay, well, give me a simple phone. My mom says a flip phone because she don't want to deal with, you know, the whole technology thing. Mm-hmm. But that's the mindset of older generations, and that's just one example. So having this level of information helps you be able to deal with a room that has all these generations in it, because baby boomers are just not retiring, because a lot of them can't afford to. So whereas you'd only have 3 different types of generations, now you have 4. So you're trying to deal with a baby boomer who's in leadership, trying to lead millennials, and they don't even get along. Then you got Generation X and Generation Y sitting in the middle trying to decide what way they want to go. Don't get me started. It's a whole dynamic. I'm trying
to figure out where the conflict between, because everybody seems to be attacking millennials for whatever reason. We don't do anything. We just kind of we are free thinkers. I like to say that. Y'all
are too free. That's really the problem. Y'all too free.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with being too free?
But you got to remember though, every generation tried to make it better for millennials. So when millennials come along with this entitlement complex, they got it from us, because our thing was we want to make the world better for our kids. Well, your kids are millennials. Yeah. So they have an entitlement complex because you gave it to them, because you want to create a better world. I think that's the disconnect, especially between baby boomers and millennials. Millennials grew up with Facebook and Instagram. So when y'all tell me y'all don't use Facebook, I'm like, but Facebook is amazing. You're just like, no, we don't use Facebook.
Facebook didn't come around for me until about 2008, 2007, 2008, which I was in like 8th grade. So that's questionable. Growing up with Facebook, I wouldn't say I grew up with Facebook.
I don't even remember 8th grade. That's how far back it is.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That's how far back it is.
All right.
But y'all understand other stuff that a lot of us don't. Like, you probably use Twitter more than I do.
I love Twitter.
See, I hate Twitter. I don't understand it. I don't understand the purpose of it. I do it because I'm supposed to have it, but I don't get it. But you probably would.
Yeah. That's where I get most of my news from, is Twitter. I just wake up and scroll and see, everything that's going on from the White House to
on Twitter. I only use Twitter to find out trending entertainment. That's about it. Everything.
And nowadays, the White House is trending entertainment.
That's so embarrassing, but you're actually right. That's so embarrassing, but you're actually right.
I mean, it's the truth. So moving on, in your book, Calculated Conflict, you share a handful of useful information. Without giving too much away, I'm going to go down a list of, things that I named earlier.
Is this Cliff Notes, or did you actually read the book? I feel like this is Cliff Notes. This is Cliff
Notes.
The one you're so far. I taught you better than this.
This is not Cliff
Notes.
When
you're with me.
Your book is not available anywhere for like at least a summary.
But it's sure not. That was intentional. You think this is? We can have freebies over here?
All right, just go ahead and explain to me what generational players are.
Wait, you expect me to explain stuff from my book?
Without giving too much away.
The matter is me remembering what's in that book. Are you serious? Generational players. I'm so embarrassed. I have to remember what I put in the book. Generational players was kind of the name I gave people who flow between the generations. Like the people who are... it's really everyday people. It's just the classification of people that you fall into, whether it be baby boomer, whether it be X, Y, millennials, baby boomers. It's just generation you fall into. Mine's called generational players because everybody falls into some generation. Now, I will somehow have to do a amendment to the book because Generation Z, when I was doing my research, was not a thing. Now Generation Z is a thing. So I'm going to have to go back and actually research what Generation Z is. But generational players is just anybody in their respective generation. That's all that is.
Okay.
Hope that's right, because like I said, I wrote the book and don't actually look.
It's most likely right. You just had to
one can hope.
Rejog your memory. All right. The conflict process. What's that about?
Are we really gonna do this? Are we really
Okay, this is the last one. Last one. Okay. Conflict process, leadership styles, or conflict offsets. Just at least one more.
Oh my God. All right, let's do leadership styles.
All right.
Okay, so leadership styles are the type of leadership that people respond to, and you will discover that every generation responds to a specific type of leadership. So there's situational leadership, which is kind of what the name implies, that is situational, that you can adapt your leadership abilities based on the situation. So you wouldn't lead a sinking ship the same way you would lead a restaurant. You want to be able to adapt your leadership. The biggest one and the most effective one to me is transformational leadership. And the name kind of implies what it is. It's transformational leadership. The ideology that my words and my leadership abilities will transform you into being your better self or being your best self. It's kind of what I do with you guys on the show. I am constantly on you guys, constantly making sure you understand the dynamics of what it is you exactly want to do, which is why I don't think you did it. But the people that came after you, they do an assessment where they have to really sit down and think about what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what is my end game, so that when we start doing stuff,
you had the
okay, good. I want to make sure I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there's a little sheet of paper. It was like 2 or 3 pages long, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a good which. Oh, yeah, because I fussed at you about that. Okay, so yeah, you need to do it. I fussed at you about that.
Yes.
But the ideology behind it is I don't want to take you in any direction you don't want to go in, but I also want to stand, if you're trying to go someplace, what you're going to need to be able to get there. So that's kind of how that works.
Okay, so last question about the book.
I thought you said that was the last question.
Let our listeners know where they can find calculated conflict.
That's your job.
You're here to promote it.
You should know where it is.
Ricardo.
Oh, you're fired. You're so fired. Okay, so if you want to get the book, the easiest thing to do is to go to Amazon.com and to get it. Calculated Conflict by Ricardo D. Rice. And like Kyle was saying, if you want to get better at leadership and you want to understand the dynamics, because there's a lot of other stuff in the book, the frustration process, what that looks like, when people are having side conversations. Because a lot of times I named it Calculated Conflict because typically that's the issue. People either don't want to deal with conflict or they don't know how to deal with conflict. And the ideology is that conflict will ruin an organization. When the reality is sometimes a conflict will make an organization great because it unburies all the stuff that simmers between leaders and their followers. So that's kind of why I named it Calculated Conflict. But you can get it at Amazon.com or you can actually get it at Barnes & Noble's online. So it's Calculated Conflict by Ricardo D. Rice. And remember, whenever I say Rice or Kyle says Rice, it's spelled with a W. So it's W-R-I-C-E. So Ricardo D. Rice, W-R-I-C-E.
All right. So now moving on to your internship program, which you were just talking about. You have several interns at your television station as well as your radio station. So how do you pick your interns? Do you go through a process of elimination? Do you make them run obstacles?
So much right now. I hate you so much right now.
How do you pick them?
Okay, so let me back up because I didn't answer that first question. So the way that I got into media was happenstance. Like I said about my degrees are law and business. I got into media by happenstance because one of my coworkers had a show at Love 860, and I was going to listen to her show. And in the process of looking for her show, I saw an ad that said, "Have you ever thought about hosting your own show?" And I was like, well, I'm funny and I like to do that kind of stuff. I was like, but not today. So but because I've always been one of those type of people, I was like, well, let me reach out to them and just get the information. So if I ever decide I want to do it, I'll have it. So I sent an email. The station manager emailed me back, which at that time was Greg. He emailed me back and was like, well, hey, if you, let's have a conversation about it. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't really plan on having a conversation. It was kind of just for information purposes. And he was like, well, you know what? Why don't you come down to the station? I'm sitting on the phone. No, he said, call me. He's like, well, call me. I'm like, okay. So I called him at the station. He was like, well, if you ever were to have a show, what would it be about? And I was like, well, I don't really know. I just kind of want information. But I came up with something. I think I was saying leadership or something. He was like, well, why don't you come down to the station and look around? So I went down to, at that time, Love 860, looked around and was like, oh, this is cute.
Right.
Little headphones and the microphones. And we sat down, and by that time, I don't like to be caught off guard twice. So we sat down and he was like, what did you think about it? And I was like, well, yeah, I would probably do a show on, at that time I had a nonprofit. So I was like, well, I'll probably do a show on nonprofit leadership. And he was like, well, after talking to you for about 30 minutes, I think you have something to say and I think people would like you. He was like, I think you should do it. So he showed me how much it was. And I was like, that's it for radio? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, let's try it. March the 6th, 2017, I had my first broadcast. No training, no kind of guidance. It was me sitting on one side, the producer sitting on the other side. He counted down from 5. And he was like, go. And
How did that go?
It went.
It's kind of like, I mean, I can understand. It's kind of like my first time here. It was me, my friend Renita, Astrid, and Ashante. And, you know, we were all just kind of scared about the fact of being behind the mic, and we didn't know who was listening to us, and you can't see who's listening to you.
Nope.
So it was just kind of nerve-wracking, but I eventually got used to it. We all eventually got used to it. I'm not going to say I. But it was fun, and I'm still here.
You just think outside when you run like Facebook and stuff, you see people popping in and out. But outside of that, you don't really see them. So it's a matter of getting comfortable and understanding the content that you're trying to do. And you work with me, so you know I don't have a script. Yeah. It's we get in, which the show that we have now is different than the one I had at Love 860. Mm-hmm. But we get in, we do have to do, and at that time it was just me. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and we had iHeart. So I'm like, I never know who's listening. Ever. And it's just kind of like, anybody could be listening because it's iHeart. Yeah.
And Miss Penny, one day she told me that we had over 1 million listeners on this station alone. And I was like, who's listening to me? Like you at any given moment, you never know who might be listening to you.
Literally. So, I mean, you know, and then TV kind of happened because TV started in December. And once again, replying to an ad, phone call was made. The date she threw out was perfect for everything I was doing. So I was like, okay. Did that started on December 3rd. No kind of understanding about TV, and actually got my butt kicked because I thought it was one thing, found it was something completely different. Thank God for my alumni institution. Shouts out to American Intercontinental University and Dunwoody, Devon, Nikki, because they stepped up and was like, okay, we'll produce a show for you. Yeah. So that ended up working out. But to segue to the internship, I said that to say when it comes to the internship program, my thought process is, I'm a teacher by nature. So I want to be able to equip the next generation to not have to learn the hard lessons I had to learn doing radio and TV. So with the interns, I choose them based off a couple of different variables. It's funny because some of the things that people think I would look for, I don't. So I'm not very apt to take people who already have a show. Like, you were lucky. Because typically you were lucky. I don't.
Okay, so I was gonna not ask this direct question, but since you said that, it made it a direct attack at me. What was it about Kyle Andrew that said I want Kyle?
We
Andrew?
Really gonna do this?
You did it.
Oh, we really gonna do this? What was it about you? God, it seems so long ago. Things happen in intervals.
Yeah, it's been about 6 months I've been at IBM.
Because I think you only interviewed one other person. Wasn't it just two of y'all?
Me and Shahib. And you just, me and Shahib, it was like a double interview, which I hate double interviews. I really like one-on-one interviews, but when I found out it was like a, interview with me and this other person, I was like, okay, well, here we go. I'm here now.
Actually, normally I would do one-on-one, but when it comes to media, because you'll be doing what we do, I need to see if you can interact in the room and make yourself stand out. That's why I do group interviews. I don't do individual interviews unless you have something really special to say or I need a follow-up, which is very rare. I want to be able to see what you can do with the group because in essence, you're on radio. People may or may not be able to see you. So I want to be able to see what you can do. How do you make yourself stand out? I think with you, I actually liked you because, I don't know. It was something about you and the fact you had a drive that I look for. There's a certain level of passion and a desire to do this that I look for. And when I first started the internship program, I kind of took people and then I learned really quickly. So it was okay, you can't take these kind of people because they're not into it. They just want an internship. You have the desire to do media, specifically radio, because radio is very specific. So I look for what you've done. If you're in college, can you articulate what it is you want to do when you graduate? Do you really like radio? Is it something you're really interested in? The consistency of your jobs. That's the NBA in me. So if I look at your resume and I see all these gaps and there's no explanation,
like you've been here for 3 months and you were here for 2 weeks, and
then that's what we call a flight risk. I don't want to waste any time. I need people who are very serious about what we do. And like I said, the more specific I got about what I need, the better the interns were. So having you, which has been what, 4 or 5 months?
5 or 6 months.
4 or 5 months. I'm not even gonna lie. I hope he's not listening. Shahid,
don't do it.
Was it? And I told him, I was like, you're gonna be a pet project because to look at to look at Shahid and to talk to him, you'd be like, yeah.
But even when I met Shahid, the first thing I noticed is he's got a great voice for radio, and I have, from where we started and where, we were on air yesterday, where he is now, I can definitely see where he's made a lot of progress and where you've been working with him. And I can see what you've been doing.
Well, sometimes it takes longer to identify because people will say they want to do one. It's like with Jazz. Jazz, when she came in for social media and other stuff. Somehow she cycled her happy behind around, and now she's on the air. But I can tell where her passion is. Her passion is on the air. It's not doing social media.
Yeah.
So once she got on the panel, now she lights up. So when I was giving out assignments yesterday, you'd already left.
Yeah.
When we were leaving, I was giving out assignments. She's like, well, what's my assignment? That's what I'm looking for. Somebody that's hungry. And I want to be able to look at you and say, oh my God, you know, I can see I remember when you got here versus where you are now.
Yeah,
and even when we got here and it was like, well, yeah, you know, we see the difference in Kyle. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. With Jazz, I had just met her the day that she came on air for the first time. Because it was the day you were running late and Simone wasn't going to be there and Michelle was supposed to be coming, and then it was the day I was actually supposed to be in your chair that day. And I was like, okay, so nobody's here. Yeah. And then so I walked in and Shaheem and Jazz were having like a little conversation. It was like a really good conversation. So I was like, do y'all want to come in here and help me out? So we were preparing and figure out what stories that we wanted to go over. And you came in, you was like, what are you doing here? I was like, let her stay. You know, and I think she did well.
I think she actually talked that day because usually I give them a pass. I think I gave you a pass too. Until I remembered when I looked at your resume, I was like, wait, he has a show. Yeah. Oh, no. We're not giving him any passes. He does this outside of here. Yeah. And I'll take all that in consideration too. Like if I do choose you and you have a show or a podcast, then the objective is to definitely find out what do you want your niche to be. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. In a market, especially like Atlanta, where everybody's doing media, everybody's doing radio, everybody's doing TV, you have to identify what your niche is. So because once you identify your niche, then your followers will find you. And then you can just kind of keep it going. And sometimes it takes a little harder to do. So, you know. Yeah.
All right, so last question before we take our break.
It better not be a book question.
It is not a book question. Okay. We are done with the book for right now.
I want to make sure.
This is about your interns. But I just want to know, what have you gained from your interns? All the interns you've had, you've had at least over 20 interns since you started.
Actually, more than that. It's been about 30 to 40. And I just started this in I started right before I left Love 860, but I have a lot there. It wasn't like I hear that I had a lot.
Some of them are still with you. Some of them are doing other things in their respective fields. So what have you gained from your intern?
Well, it's twofold. I get a lot of joy when I see growth because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I tell people, I don't know if I said to your group, but I tell people when I interview, I want everybody to think of me as Oprah. You know, and not for the obvious reason, people, not for the obvious reasons, but because Oprah had this ideology that she's a facilitator for other people. We create a platform, and then, you know, you get your Dr. Oz, your Rachel Ray's. That's kind of ideology I have, that because at the end of the day, any seed that I plant in you guys that grows, you're going to always pay homage to me. Well, you know, thank God for Ricardo for giving me my first opportunity. So I live on through you guys. So that's kind of my ideology. So when I got a message from Star, I don't know. Did you meet Star?
I never met Star.
When I got the message from Star was one of my. I'm not even gonna say that because if I say that, people can get offended. Star is one of my babies. But when she sent me a Facebook message and said, "Hey, I'm getting my own," because she goes to school in Washington, and she was like, "Well, hey, I'm getting my own show on campus. I can't wait to exercise the stuff that you taught me." And she's sending me message and pictures. It brought me joy because I'm like, wow, you know, the fact that you thought about me first to send the message to say, hey, you know, thank you for what you imparted into me. And I only had it for like 2 months. Wow. Those are the things I live for, you know, to come in here and be on your show and fuss at you on the air, on your air.
Yes.
It's fun. It's you know, and to look at people like Shaheed, you know, that when I brought him in, people were like, okay, what you gonna do with him? And I'm just like, no. There's something, even with Joseph, the engineer, when I brought Joseph in, it was just like, so.
I forgot about Joseph. I didn't know he was an intern. Is he an intern?
He's an intern.
He's doing great.
I brought him in. Everybody was kind of like, "What? So what?"
Yeah, and even the day that you were running late, and he was staring. He was like, "You're in his chair today." I was like, "He's running late. He's bringing his son. Michelle's gonna come just at 12. Just go." And he did it. So,
and like I said, it's Joseph is one of the ones that he was kind of like, "Okay, so what are you gonna do?" And I was like, "He wants to do audio. Yeah. Now he does all kinds of stuff around the station, and he wants to do more. That's what it's all about. Like I could run a station by myself with all the interns. Like they have a passion and desire for it, and that's what it's all about. Because passion will get you where education won't.
All right, then. Well, on that note, we're going to take our first break. This is Millennial Talk 2.0 with your host, Kyle Andrew. We'll be right back.